Coalition Party on June 14th, 2024, and entitled Kenya Kwanza Regime's 2024-2025 Budget Estimates and Finance Bill 2024 are a monumental betrayal of public trust. Good afternoon, and thank you for honoring our invitation to attend this important press conference. The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party convened to discuss the budget estimates 2024-2025 and the Finance Bill 2024, assessing the nation's overall condition and the impact of the Kenya Kwanza regime. We now wish to make the following announcement to the Kenyan public regarding our position on the two matters. On the number one item, budget estimates 2024-2025, in February, we informed Kenyans that the Kenya Kwanza's economic proposals, policies, and plans were unsound, unrealistic, and unrectifiable. This regime's preference for self-interest over the nation's well-being is evident in the review of the 2024-2025 budget estimates. Indeed, the regime, with a contemptuous attitude towards the common Kenyan, has revealed its deep betrayal of the hustlers it claims to serve. The budgetary allocations do not promote economic growth, but betray Kenyans. This regime has concealed its true goals of maintaining an oppressive and equal system benefiting a select few elites under the illusion of progress. Kenya Kwanza's prioritization of selective shareholder financing or financial gain over the needs of Kenyan citizens is a shameful decision given the country's high living expenses, high poverty, and unemployment. Indeed, the regime's continued allocations to state departments and agencies that duplicate county functions exemplify a lack of concern for Kenyans' well-being. The budgetary process lacks transparency and accountability, indicating a government operating with impunity and disregard for consequences. Indeed, from the CSEs, PSEs to the chair of the House Budget Committee and the printed budget books, all have varying figures. Who or what should Kenyans believe? This is a continuation of KK's culture of duplicity and lies, to the point they have forgotten what lie they told Kenyans yesterday. The Kenya Kwanza regime's 2024-2025 budget, despite its lofty and imprecise titles, fails to address the people's concerns. Considering that this regime has spent massive taxpayer funds on hiring private jets and transporting obscenely large delegations overseas in the name of benchmarking that they could not borrow or learn how these nation states have actually been reducing taxes to stimulate the economies and be able to create jobs. This is actually all of that benchmarking is short of puzzling. I was showing my colleagues the headline in one of the UK papers, which is basically the elections are next month in the UK. And both the Conservatives and Labour are overdoing each other and showing which of the two formations will reduce taxes. And it is the opposite in our country. This disregard for democratic norms and the rule of law, ostentatiously to please their Washington masters, is exemplified by the absence of genuine public consultation and supervision. And by Washington masters, of course, you also know that is where the Bretton Woods are actually based, lest you think we are attacking any other regime. We are not. It is a contention that despite the budget estimate 2024-2025 hyperbole, flowery language, and complicated figures, it simply does not stimulate economic activity. It does the opposite and seeks to tax every adult Kenyan 24,000 shillings more, additional to all what we all know as, for example, the housing tax and the very lean pay slips. Ladies and gentlemen, this can only be termed as a reckless race to the bottom. I don't know how many times C.S. Ndungu repeated the words bottom up, bottom up. So became so boring. Kenyans have lost touch with that kind of phraseology. Do not take our word for it. These are some of the examples of increased expenditure. Number one, Office of the Executive President, 1.2 billion shillings. Office of the Deputy President, 678 million shillings. Minister of Defense, 11 billion shillings. Additional. All these additional. Foreign Affairs, 1.4 billion. National Treasury, 6 billion. One wonders what the Treasury has to spend this money for. Minister of Transport, 1.3 billion. Minister of Cooperatives, 2 billion. This is a 23.6 billion increase in recurrent expenditure. This is a budgeted corruption in the name of tea, mandazi, and flowers. This is not development, but sheer eating. It's their turn to eat, so they believe. Further, we highlight the following misplaced allocations. Number one, the National Treasury has 26 billion more in the name of development. Two, the State Department for Devolution has an increase of 2.6 billion in development expenditure. If this regime believes in the success of devolution, then these funds should form part of the equitable share to the county governments. Number three, the State Department of Housing has been allocated an additional 72 billion shillings. This is higher than that of 10 counties combined. What is the line item 1071 106600, or is it the sign of the beast, some wonder? Strategic response, this is what it is. That particular line item is entitled Strategic Response to Public Initiatives. Strategic response to public initiatives. That comes to 2.5 billion shillings. If that is not budgeted corruption, what is it? Who amongst you learned members of the media and even learned friends in the legal fraternity can tell us what the meaning of strategic response to public initiatives? We estimate 1 trillion shillings as budgeted corruption for the next financial year. In light of these grievous transgressions, we as a coalition urge the international community, the civil society organizations, and concerned citizens, both at home and abroad, to stand in solidarity with Kenyans in condemning Kenya Kwanza's regime's blatant disregard for the public good. We call for quick action to bring those responsible for this breach of trust accountable and to lobby for a budgetary framework that prioritizes the needs and concerns of all Kenyans, not just the privileged few. Kenya Kwanza may have been successful in unveiling its punitive budget, but it has fallen short of its obligation to lead with honesty, with fairness, and compassion. Kenyans deserve better, and we will not stop fighting for them to be given the voice and direction they so richly deserve. On the Finance Bill 2024, as our second item, the Kenya Kwanza regime's planned Finance Bill 2024 seeks to fund a 3.914 trillion budget through tax collection of 3.354 trillion shillings. This grandiose goal comprises several new and amended tax measures that will have a substantial impact on both individuals and businesses in our country. Azimio believes that Kenyans can only thrive if we stimulate the economy, not if we arbitrarily and consistently raise their tax burden. If the bill is passed as written, Kenyans must be prepared to give up their belts or what remains of them in the second wave of KK taxes. We know that ordinary Kenyans, Mamamboga, border riders, and the people of Mjengo and Kokoteni have nothing to gain from this bill because Kenya Kwanza is targeting them for the second time with a double taxation plan that aims to increase taxes by approximately 24,000 shillings per adult Kenyan per year. The majority of the tax measures in the 2024 finance bill are punitive in nature with substantial consequences for Kenyans. For example, the new tax on motor vehicles proposes a 2.5% tax on the value of motor vehicles with a minimum of 5,000 shillings and a maximum of 100,000 shillings, which, if adopted, will raise the cost of car ownership and result in higher insurance rates. It is predicted to have an impact on the transportation and logistics industries, thereby increasing the cost of living via a multiplier effect. The new withholding tax on digital marketplaces levies a 20% tax on non-residents and 5% on residents' income from digital marketplaces. This will raise tax compliance expenses for digital marketplace operators, perhaps leading to higher pricing for consumers as businesses pass on the tax burden. The proposed rise in excise duty on money transfer services from 15% to 20% will raise the cost of financial transactions, hurting both businesses and individuals who use these services daily. The significant economic presence tax, which proposes to replace the digital service tax with a 30% tax on non-resident digital service providers' taxable profit, calculated as 20% of gross turnover, will significantly increase the tax burden on digital service providers from 1.5% under DST, abbreviation for digital service tax, to an effective rate of 6%. This will deter digital companies from operating in Kenya, which could stunt the sector's expansion. Kenya's efforts to establish a circular economy to manage its waste and become a regional recycling hub will be further undermined by the recently proposed eco-levy environmental tax, which targets importers and manufacturers of specific products to set up waste management infrastructure. This new tax will duplicate the current levy mandated under Extended Producer Responsibility (EPR) scheme and will also remove the incentive to increase investments in recycling waste products. Additionally, the eco-levy will be detrimental to mwananchi as it will increase prices for all plastic packaging materials, batteries, and hygiene products. For instance, the 150 shilling levy per kilogram of plastic packaging will increase the cost of a 400-gram loaf of bread by 9 shillings, from 65 shillings to 74 shillings. Increase 1 liter of cooking oil by 16.81 shillings, from 300 to 316.81. Increase of 1 kilogram of powder detergent by 30, from by 30 shillings from 200 to 230. Bread and other necessities will now be subject to a standard rated VAT instead of zero rated VAT, which will directly affect household spending and drive up the already expensive cost of living. As Azimio, we firmly believe that these are serious ramifications for Kenya's economy and standard of living if the bill is passed into law. Should it be put to effect, it will significantly raise production costs, will destroy the industry's ability to compete, resulting in closures and job losses. As a result, our local and export markets will be negatively impacted, retail prices will rise, mwananchi will be burdened, and cash flow requirements will rise during a period when interest rates are rising. Azimio believes that our country's focus should be on helping enterprises and the manufacturing industry to create jobs and wealth, increase productivity, cut living costs, and finally, bring prosperity to Kenyans. We therefore reaffirm our stand that all well-meaning Kenyans must oppose the Finance Bill 2024 and have thus instructed all our parliamentary members to lead from the front in rejecting this punitive bill in its totality. Finally, we salute Kenyans who have used text messaging, phone calls, and social media initiatives, #FindMyMP, to urge their legislators to listen to their constituents and vote no. This peaceful civic assertiveness and engagement will eventually become the norm, especially under our leadership as your government in waiting. Thank you, and may God bless Kenya. End of the statement. I'll ask my colleagues here to add one or two things. While I was away, there was some very interesting political developments. It was wartime Prime Minister Churchill of the UK who said a week in politics is a very long time. And I think somebody had a #find Kalonzo. I am back and in good spirits. Maybe I can ask Kioni, because I want to also recognize the fact that the spokesperson for former President Uhuru Kenyatta issued a very, very, very clear statement on some of this budgeted corruption. Monies are budgeted for the office of retired president, retired deputy presidents, the vice presidents and premiers, and nothing seems to be happening in those offices. Ask yourselves, where does this money go? So it is now clear, and I think we can also ask my friends here, Eugene and Kioni and Safuna, if you are ready. No? Deritu, you are the author. Or senator, any of the senators, to say something. Maybe I start with Kioni.